Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show at We Are the People. This is Jacob Milton as usual. Sometimes we get lucky to find some of the important individuals. I invite them come to the show and we talk. We are having conversation. You know, there is one of the important elections these Queens County people are going to have on June 25th. Lots of people are thinking, what election are we talking about? This is one of the important elections of our lifetime. Trust me when I say this is one of the important elections of our lifetime in Queens County. Do you know why? For the last 28 years, for that position, there wasn't an election. There was one-man party and one party existed at that time. They just keep talking about that Richard Brown has to be the Queens District Attorney. That's the way they ran. But none of the rules stay forever. So right now we are facing something. One of the important part is going to take place on June 25th, that people of Queens County, they are going to elect their district attorney. And in that election, some marvelous, qualified people are running for that office. Ladies and gentlemen, today I got lucky to have one of the important candidates that who come out and says, do you know what? We cannot have these things the way things is going on at Queens DA's office, so that we're going to do the reform. She decided to run for that position. I saw it that she is running tirelessly for over a year. Well, guess what? This election process, the way it took, the way it works, whoever knocking more door, who is pushing hard, try to get people's attention, that's exactly she is doing. Her name is Tiffany Caban. In her personal life, she was a public defender. She's an attorney. She, in her life, she participated in a lots of ways to preserve people's human rights, civil rights, and she did her best in her professional and personal life to do the right thing. When I am being asked by a friend that I will have that opportunity to speak to her in front of a camera, I took that opportunity, and I am lucky enough, today especially, she's making my day. She came here well dressed, she looked pretty, and we are gonna talk to her and see what she's going to offer. That I don't know, lots of people of Queens County probably didn't meet her yet, but they're gonna hear a lot of things. They're gonna hear a lot of things from her own mouth, so that people of Queens County can judge that on June 25th, when they're gonna go to the polling booth, whom they're gonna vote for. Ladies and gentlemen, let's meet Attorney Tiffany Caban. Miss Caban, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. You made my day, so I appreciate it.
One thing, how do you feel, how do you react to people's opinion that for the last 28 years, there wasn't any election? There was almost a selection. Party selected an individual. There is only one person was running. There was no opposition. But this year, why suddenly this election is taking place? That gentleman is still alive.
You know, it's been long overdue. When we talk about elections that we've had recently and the ways that our communities have come together and say, hey, we want change, we need it in the DA's office. When we talk about local elected positions, the district attorney's office is probably the most powerful local elected position that anybody could vote for, because you know, our criminal justice system is tied to everything: housing, healthcare, education. You can't separate them. So it is definitely long overdue. You know, my understanding is that DA Richard Brown couldn't do the job anymore, but this should have happened years ago, and I'm really excited to be in the race now.
Whispering is everywhere that he's not running Queens DA's office for the last over 10 years almost. He cannot even recognize his own people.
You know, I think at the very least to have somebody in the office for 30 plus years without any real change or evolution. We've seen our communities change. We've seen crime go down. We've gotten all of this new research and information about what actually works to keep people safe. And then what we found in Queens is that the DA's office isn't changing with the times, right? Isn't changing with the research to do a better job. So, you know, for me, that's where my issue lies, that not enough has changed.
One logical question. New York County, Brooklyn, Staten Island, and what's the other county?
Bronx.
Bronx.
The Bronx. The boogie down.
All 4 counties have conviction review board. How come Queens County never had it for the last 28 years? Do you think it's a failure of Richard Brown or just being ignorant?
It's absolutely a failure. Every single borough should have a conviction review unit. And I would venture to say that the units that the other boroughs have are a good start, but there are definitely ways that we could be expanding on them. And if I were to get into the DA's office, we'd have a robust conviction review unit with its own attorneys, investigators, support staff, so that we are looking and making sure that innocent people aren't locked up, so that we're making sure that people that were convicted because of the testimony of perhaps police officers that lied or perjured themselves or had other misconduct, that we're reviewing those convictions. There are convictions, people sitting in jail because bad science was used at their trials, science that no other scientific board accepts at this point, but our courts are allowing them into as evidence. And then there are also just folks that are languishing in prisons because of the war on drugs, right? That are serving very, very long sentences for nonviolent offenses, for struggling with substance use disorder. And we need to be looking at all of those things.
In 28 years, there was not one police officer or correction officers got disciplined or got convicted, even though there's a lot of human rights violation in Queens County. Are you aware of it?
So, and I think the issue the issue there is that there's not a separate unit. So what we need to have is an independent prosecutor, right? Because we need to be able to make sure that we are able to hold people accountable, whether they have a badge or not, right? If you break the law, you break the law, and we have to make sure that these bad things don't continue to happen, and that means holding people accountable.
Do you think is it very fair to say that Richard Brown and his people, those who are running that DA's office, they don't want any accountability at the office? That is the reason they refuse to set up a conviction review board. Is it fair to say?
It's fair to say that they haven't prioritized it, right? Which means that they're not prioritizing their community.
I'm not saying, people are not saying prioritize.
Yeah.
I'm saying they did not allow it. There was a conversation took place that why Queens County or Richard Brown refused to set up a conviction review board, and he flatly refused. He said, no, we're not going to have it. What does that mean? Is it really fair to say that Richard Brown did not want anybody come here and supervise exactly what is going on?
Yeah. And he shouldn't have done it. He should have said, we need that unit.
Some people brutally got killed in South Jamaica. And under his watch, all those police officers walk out free. And not only that they walked out free, they just returned to their previous position. Now, this is the year everybody decided that, okay, we are going to do the election. And this Queen's Democratic Party ran by a dictator. Thank God he's out. And now there is another gentleman took it over. Now they are cutting a deal behind the scene, and they already put a candidate with a clause that someone is going to run for Queen's DA. She's going to take it over, and she's going to keep everything what Richard Brown has at the Queen's District Attorney's Office. She's not going to commit anything. Probably she's going to brush it off about conviction review board, and she's not going to replace none of the senior official, bureau chief or other attorney. Now, you know that Queen's Democratic Party already, officially, unofficially, they decided to back Melinda Kurtz.
Without talking to any of the other candidates or the county committees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we put somebody to supervise 300 attorneys and almost 357 to 400 administrative staff? That person do not have any experience as a defense counsel, any experience of prosecution, any experience of investigating, any experience to manage 700 people. Can the Queens County people trust that person to take over that place?
No. I think you have to have criminal court experience. I think it's absolutely necessary.
And what make you think that if you are the residents of Queens County and someone is running to take over Queens DA's office, they're almost certain that she's going to get elected and take it over. She's going to become the Queens DA without an experience. Is it a good luck for the citizen of Queens County, or it's really like a bad luck giving an extension to Richard Brown?
I think the people of Queens would not benefit from Melinda Katz being the district
No,
attorney.
my real question is it really, do you think Melinda Katz is capable of bringing any changes or reform at the Queens DA's office?
No, not the reform we need.
Why you think she cannot?
Again, I think it's one big piece is you need to have that criminal court experience, but the other thing is that she's taking corporate money, right? She's taking real estate money, she's taking corporate money. So you can't go out and tell the Queens communities, I'm going to hold bad landlords accountable. I'm going to make sure corporate bad actors don't take advantage of people. I'm going to make sure the banks don't engage in predatory lending and people don't lose their homes. But then you can't do that and then take those people's money and say that you're going to then prosecute them later on if they do wrong, right? One of the things that we're doing in my campaign is we're saying, no, we won't take that money because we want to be accountable only to the people of Queens, not the people or the corporations that have been taking advantage.
Are you aware that under Richard Brown, he's allowing ICE to come to the Queens Criminal Court and pick up undocumented people?
That's what's been happening.
What's your plan? What you're going to do if you become DA?
We have to keep ICE out of courts. We had an excellent order that came out, I think it was even this morning, saying that they were going to keep ICE out of courts, but we also have to keep ICE out of our places of worship, out of our schools. And what I've always said is the same with police officers, right? Whether you have a badge or not, right? If you are a state or a federal officer with a badge, you cannot be allowed to break the law. You cannot be allowed to hurt the citizens of Queens. And so we will hold officers accountable, including ICE.
In your life, did you ever had opportunity to go inside the mosque?
Yes.
Do you know when people goes to the mosque, you know that Muslim people, they take their shoe off, right? NYPD goes to the mosque, they goes not removing their shoes, they're walking straight to the mosque. If you become DA, what you're gonna do?
You have to respect people's religion and their customs. Of course, you respect that.
No, the reason I'm asking this question, you says they should I should be out of.
No, they shouldn't be going there. Period.
Okay. And is there any specific program that you are thinking that you're gonna keep ICE out of the any DA's office or place of worship?
So one of the things that we need to do is Queens, New York City is supposed to be a sanctuary city, right? And because of the way ICE has infiltrated, it has not been that. So one of my commitments is not cooperating with ICE, making sure that they're not coming into the courthouse, making sure that we're protecting people from exposure to ICE so we can go out into communities and educate community members about how to protect themselves and if they're at risk from being picked up by ICE, a lot of the different resources and things that they can do to reduce that risk. But then again, my other commitment is to say, hey, if there's a situation where ICE goes outside the scope of their duty, where they break the law, where they are using excessive force, where they assault somebody, where they sexually assault somebody, that we're going to prosecute them and hold them accountable.
Are you living in Queens County?
I do.
Where do you live?
So I grew up in Richmond Hill, South Richmond Hill, but I live in Astoria now.
Are you aware that Richard Brown is not living in Queens County for the last 11 years?
I heard that. Yeah. I didn't know if it was true or not, but I heard that.
Well, there's lots of people are saying he lives in Westchester County for the last 11 years. But why none of the candidates are talking about it?
I think it's important to live in the community that you're supposed to be serving, right? In the borough that you're supposed to be serving.
If someone is not living in the county and running for a public office, is it legal or just violation?
Well, I think for the district attorney's position, you're supposed to live in the county. And beyond that, I think it's really important not just for the head district attorney to live in the county, but the assistant district attorneys, they should live in the county too. And they should get to know the neighborhoods that they're supposed to, again, be doing.
Well, they're the employee of the DA's office. But I'm saying main district attorney. Do you think he or she should be the residents of Queens County?
Absolutely.
No, when Richard Brown is not living in Queens County, as everyone knows, is it a violation or it's a crime?
I don't think that it's a crime.
But does that qualify him? Does that qualify him to run for running a public office and not living in the county?
I think it says something that he's not living there.
No.
He should be living there.
No. How do you categorize? Is it a crime? Is it a violation? Or it's a giving a misinformation to the people that, okay, well, I'm living here. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to whether it's a technical violation of some sort of statute. That I don't know. But the answer to whether
are you aware that Joe Crowley, his children goes to this school in Virginia?
Yes.
Okay, he admitted.
Yeah.
So there was a big brouhaha and cries that why he's living in Virginia, and people are criticizing him but not criticizing Richard Brown. Why?
Again, I think people haven't had the spotlight on the district attorney's race, and they should now. So they should be holding people's feet to the fire and criticizing them, telling them what they want out of their elected representatives.
If you walk in South Jamaica, if you live in some of the area, lots of the people I talked to, when I interviewed them, I was talking to some of the victims of the crime, and they says, inside the Queen's DA's office, they're running a criminal enterprise. How do you respond to that? So
people, especially in Southeast Queens and other areas, it's just a fact that the clearance, what we call them in like the criminal justice and the courts, the clearance rates on crimes, right, whether cases get solved and closed, are lower in Black and brown and low-income communities. So when people are survivors or victims of crime, justice is done better in different neighborhoods than it is in others, and that's completely unacceptable, right? If you are the victim of a crime in Southeast Queens and the victim of a crime in Bayside, you should be able to get the same kind of care, the same kind of attention, the same kind of justice, and that's not what happens right now.
Okay. So, in a way, like I'm going back and forth. If you are not living in Queens County, do you think you should be allowed to run for Queens DA?
I don't think so. I think you should have to live in the county.
Okay. What if you are living in Westchester County and running for Queens DA? Do you think your candidacy is legal or illegal?
Oh, I don't know if it's legal or illegal. I don't know the answer to that.
That's a fair answer.
Yeah, I don't have all the answers. I'm very
no. That's a fair answer. Yeah. That's a fair answer. That's a fair answer. Fine. Okay. The reason I'm saying, if someone, I asked one of my friends to run for Queens DA. He lives in Comac. He said, Jacob, I cannot run. If I run for Queens DA, my candidacy will go down. So if that is a violation, only thing I wanted to say that whoever is running for public office, they should be the residents of Queens County.
I agree with you.
That's all I'm saying.
I agree with you.
If anyone do not do that, then that's illegal activities, irregularities. However, tell me about you. What school you went to?
So I went to PS 62, the Chester Park School in Richmond Hill.
Fantastic.
Actually, I grew up right across the street from that school.
Okay.
And then I went to Junior High School 210, Elizabeth Blackwell, right off of Woodhaven Boulevard.
Fantastic.
And then I actually went to Catholic school for high school. I went to St. Francis Prep in Fresh Meadows.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And what law school you went to?
I went to New York Law School. So I did my undergrad. I actually left New York City to go to undergrad. I did my undergrad at Penn State. And then I went to New York Law School in Manhattan.
Oh, how is your experience as a student? Why you studied law?
Well, I knew I wanted to be a public defender. To be honest, I didn't have any interest in any other kind of law. If I wasn't practicing criminal law, I would not be practicing law to begin with. But again, my parents grew up in housing projects in Woodside.
Wow.
I grew up in South Richmond Hill, and having the experiences of understanding that that people aren't treated the same in different places, right? That there are areas where people are over-policed, over-criminalized. There are people that in areas where when they get hurt or are the victims of crime, they aren't taken care of the same way. And to have those inequities in place is not right, and we should be fighting to balance that, right?
One thing I love about you, that you saw the reality. You went to the public school, your parents were living in Woodside, as you says, in a public housing?
Yep.
Okay. And after the law school, what did you do?
I got my dream job. I became a public defender.
Public defender, where?
Yeah.
Where?
At the Legal Aid Society.
In Queens County?
In Manhattan. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. The time you worked there, was the DA Morgenthau or?
No, it was Cy Vance the entire time. Still Cy Vance, but hopefully somebody primaries him next time around.
How was your experience defending people? I'm sure that's your dream job.
I loved it because, when I think about it, it's not about everybody, one, deserves a defense and fair outcomes. And understanding, growing up the way that I did, that a lot of times there are so many communities that are struggling, but don't have access to the same resources that other people have. And a lot of times that's the difference between getting caught up in our criminal justice system or not. I because my dad got a union job, right? He's a retired elevator mechanic, but that meant that we had health insurance, that a steady paycheck, that I got to have an education, that I got to go to college, had access to all of these things that sometimes my neighbors or other people didn't. And our criminal justice system, you see people get arrested, get criminalized, and there are just so many other ways to take care of people and keep people safe. When I think about it, as a public defender, I have represented people who, are stealing because of their struggles with drug use, right? Right, and we should be helping those folks, and then also saying, well, those doctors that are overprescribing opioids, why aren't we holding them responsible? Because, right, because when you do that, when you get to the root causes of crime, it takes care of that other stuff too. I have represented people who were arrested for seeking shelter because they were homeless or whatever it might be. But we're not prosecuting bad landlords who are throwing people out of their homes, or companies, predatory lenders who are causing people are losing their mortgages. And what I've learned as a public defender is that when stability equals public safety. So if people have access to resources, food on their table, they know where they're going to go home at night, they have education and jobs, that's the best way to reduce crime. And so if we want to get public safety, we need to start going after those larger bad actors. And that's not what our DA's offices have prioritized.
Okay.
That's got to change.
You used to work at a public defender's office in Manhattan, but there is a perception in Queens County, especially those who are using public defenders from a legal aid society or somewhere, they're pro-prosecution. What's your...
Absolutely not. So I'll say this. I am so proud to have been a public defender. Some of the best lawyers I have ever met, ever come across against our public and worked with are public defenders. And what's really terrible is that the government has all of these resources, access to resources in terms of the district attorney's office. Meanwhile, public defenders, they don't get any of those resources, but you have people who care so much about doing the work and are so smart, and we work together as teams, but we're really, in a lot of ways, set up at such a disadvantage. The ways that our district attorney's office have functioned in terms of not handing over evidence in cases, using a lot of different coercive practices. And instead of just saying, like, let's be fair, instead of saying our only goal is to get a conviction, a sentence, throw somebody in jail, we should just be saying, as DAs, our goal is to make sure harm doesn't happen again, to keep people safe, right? And doing whatever it takes to do that. But when you're only worried about convictions and getting those that tally those notches, then you start engaging in gamesmanship, and you play games, and you engage in unfair practices, and you really hurt and harm not just individuals, but families and entire communities. Public defenders are, some of the best people and lawyers I know.
Okay. Who controls legal aid society and public defenders?
So the way that it works is public defense organizations, they contract with the city. So they're not government employees, but certainly they negotiate their contracts with the city.
Does district attorney has any leverage over public defender's office?
So there are a lot of different, and I can't speak into the specifics of their contracts.
No.
Some of the funding comes from the city, some comes from the state. And so there are specific things that they have to do. So, for example, which I think is interesting because they don't have to do it at the DA's office.
Right.
So, for example, part of the public defender's contract is all the public defense offices have to keep data. And then they have to report their data so that they make sure that they're continuing to do better work and explaining why they're using their resources in a certain way, spending their money in a certain way. So there are different, things that they have to do there.
You mentioned one thing that public defender's office or legal aid society do not have enough resources to defend a defendant or represent them, which DA's office definitely they have it. Is it due to the lack of fund, or is there any others?
Yeah, so right now there's actually a big fight going on in Albany where public defense organizations are fighting for pay parity. It's also hard to keep public defenders in their work because they're not getting paid as much as DAs are getting paid. And it was a little bit different years ago, but right now we're at a time where a lot of younger attorneys who are years 10 and below, we're all sitting with a ton of student loan debt in terms of the amount of money that it costs to go to law school. So it's really not uncommon for public defense, for any defense attorney that's doing public interest work, right, that you don't make a lot of money, to have $150,000 worth of student loan debt. And so you're making those payments every month, and you're getting paid less than the DA's office is paying. And so it's hard for folks to stay in the job, to be able to provide for themselves and their families. And then not only that, but also just budget-wise for the office as a whole, right? There's less money to go around to hire experts for cases, right? You're so tight on budget that you have to figure out where the money is best sent. So if the government wants to fly in experts and witnesses from all around the country, they can do that. But if we have to fight and be scrappy with saying, hey, we're going to bring in this expert to help defend our client, or we're going to bring in these resources, and it means making these really hard decisions. And we shouldn't have to make those hard decisions. If we need something in a case to give our client their constitutional right to a defense, we should be able to get it. Okay.
There is one gentleman is running. His name is Judge Gregory Lassak. He just keeps saying that every event he goes to, he says he's the only person running for this position. He was a prosecutor for 25 years. He has this experience, that experience. If I'm going to repeat that one, he's claiming that he has that only experience. How do you respond to him that he says he has a prosecution experience?
Listen,
what differences make?
I think it's the wrong kind of experience, because when we talk about needing criminal justice reform, then I don't think that we need somebody who has been perpetuating that same system that we were saying is broken and needs to be fixed for decades, right? We need something different. So, to come in and say, hey, for somebody who has had the career that he's had, he's been doing this a long time. He could have built in these changes a decade ago or 2 decades ago.
Well, there is also in a town hall meeting, somebody asked, well, you are a prosecutor for the last 25 years. You are a prosecutor. How many people you defended?
Part of the problem.
How many defended? Okay, that was the question he was facing. The time you used to work for public defender's office, did you supervise anything? Did you manage any people?
No, so what I did was I helped out with, interns and building teams and things like that. Where I've really gained a lot of management experience recently is with this campaign. So when we talk about a campaign, right, I think of myself as like the CEO, right? And my campaign manager, that's my COO, that's my chief operating officer. And so I have been managing a campaign with full staff, talking about a finance department, a comms department, a policy department, a field department, with all of these folks underneath, and then not to mention the 300 to 400 volunteers we have. And so it is a huge, we have so much. I'm so proud of the amount of volunteer, force that we have. But that is, to be able, I'm very proud of the fact to build such a strong and large campaign in such a short period of time and be as effective as we have been. In terms of getting out there, knocking on doors, the endorsements we've gotten, the Working Families Party, Real Justice PAC, DSA, NIPAN, the list goes on and on. And so
there's a conversation is going on that Tiffany Caban, she is running for that office, and she will have to take order from some other organization to run Queen's DA's office. That she is representing some other organization. This is Social Democrat and some other things. How do you respond to that criticism?
So I am going to take orders from somebody, and it's going to be all of the Queens communities, right? What I've learned is, and that's missing from the DA's office, is that whenever we have policy, right, the DA gets to decide what the policies are, gets to decide what the rules are, what we're going to prosecute, how we're going to prosecute it, what our goals are. And for me, who I'm answering to, who my boss is, are the people of Queens, right? All of the people of Queens. So if they say, hey, these are the problems we're dealing with, and we want you to deal with them this way, and we want you to prioritize them, that's my job to do that. And so it's not just one particular group, but again, it is the people of Queens who, for too long, haven't had a seat at the table to make these decisions and be the ones informing the policies, and then holding me accountable to make sure that I'm doing the things that they ask me to.
Forgive me, I'm gonna overrule myself. Last question. Do you think there would be a term limit at the Queen's DA's office?
I think there should be a term limit. Absolutely.
And how many terms do you think a person should run?
I think pretty much at most maybe 3 terms, but
No more than 3?
No more than 3.
Miss Caban, it's a wonderful experience, and I really had a good experience talking to you.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You are really vibrant, and you are young, and you are running. You are trying to achieve something.
Thank you.
My prayer will go out
Thank you.
with you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.
Well, it was a good conversation. She has the perception, she's thinking that she's gonna achieve and do the reform at the Queen's DA's office. But one thing, if I'm going to judge it from the sideline, say being a resident of Queens County, I am looking for someone who has the right experience, lives in Queens County, looking at the welfare of the peoples of Queens County in all aspects. That's all we are looking for. When I was talking to Miss Caban, one thing really impressed me, that she went to public school. Her father is one of the blue-collar workers living in a project. Their parents raised her. She became an attorney, became a public defender. Well, people may say that she do not have any experience about prosecution, investigation, as well as she do not have experience of managing people. But why Queen's DA's office really need someone seasoned who has experience? If we are going to judge Tiffany Caban from that perspective, she's lacking some of the experience. She's lacking some of the ideas that she never faced. She never made a hardcore decision. But guess what? On the other hand, as a public defender, she knew how to defend someone. So I would give her that credit. But if someone says, hey, she never prosecuted someone, well, she did not. How old is she? She didn't have that opportunity. But you cannot predict that she's going to do a bad job. We cannot say that. If she had the position, probably she's going to do the good job. So on that one, hey, people has a choice. I may decide that I'm going to vote for that person who has all the experience, don't need any experiment or job training. Well, that's up to the voters of Queens County. Or some people says, do you know what? I can vote for her and she's going to do the reform. She may not have that best experience in everything. Well, as a person, she's a good one and she truly has a good vision to run the DA's office. She's going to do the good job. Hey, it's up to them. In my views, Tiffany Caban definitely a good individual. Experience-wise, well, as she mentioned, she didn't lie, she didn't sugarcoat. She says she worked for public defender's office. In her life, she never prosecuted anyone. She didn't claim it. So I cannot criticize her because she's upfront, she's being truthful, and she also says one thing, even though I was not happy with the answer, I asked her if she has management experience. She says she's gathering experience while she's running for the campaign. That's not a good answer, but that's what she did. Hey, but again, I am saying she said all the truth, nothing but the truth. So audience, it's up to you. Residents of Queens County, it's up to you. You're going to pick someone who has the right experience from day one. It's up to you. Then find someone who has the right experience, or if you're looking for a good person who has a good intention, grew up in a project, better individual who can run the Queen's DA's office, then Tiffany Caban is your choice too. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching us. Excuse me or forgive me, sometimes I have to go hard on the people, because guess what? Queens DA is going to be the deciding factor of the life of all residents of Queens County. So we have to make sure that we get the right person. Thanks for watching us. This is Jacob Milton. I'll see you next time. Bye.